Alicia Bromfield was supposed to be celebrating. Just hours earlier, she was smiling and laughing, surrounded by people at a wedding. Now she's lying motionless in a hotel room. A blanket covers her, a pillow beneath her head. At first glance, it looks like she just went to sleep, but her bruises tell another story. The marks on her wrists, the faint scratches on her hands. She fought back. 911, what's your emergency? A man's voice, eerily calm. I did something terrible. The police arrive minutes later. The hotel hallway is quiet, except for the muffled sound of a television in a nearby room. When officers push open the door, they freeze. Everything looks too neat, too careful. The body is placed with intention. No signs of struggle in the room, but her body tells the truth. At the station, the man sits across from detectives. No panic, no remorse. Just a quiet stare before he finally speaks. She wouldn't leave me alone, so I fixed it. His name is Brian Cooper. He was her boss, a man she once trusted. A man who spent years convincing himself that Alicia Bromfield belonged to him. Alicia had always been the responsible one. At 24, she had built a life that was heading in the right direction. She worked part-time while studying, ensuring she could support herself without asking for help. People admired her for that. Her friends described her as someone who never complained, no matter how much she had on her plate. She made things work, even when it seemed impossible. Alicia had dreams bigger than most people her age. A future in law enforcement. A career where she could help people. She wasn't just working toward a degree, she was preparing for a life of service. And she wasn't doing it for herself alone. Her family meant everything to her. She took care of her younger siblings, always putting them first. If they needed something, she found a way. She sacrificed sleep, time, and personal comfort to make sure they had what they needed. Her kindness was the kind people take for granted. She was the friend who showed up when others didn't. The coworker who covered shifts without hesitation. The student who stayed late to help classmates who were struggling. She didn't see it as anything special. It was just who she was. But that kindness came at a cost. She trusted people who didn't deserve it. She believed that if she treated others well, they would do the same. That belief was wrong. She never saw the danger coming. She thought he was just another coworker. Maybe a little too friendly. Maybe a little too eager to be around her, but nothing she couldn't handle. She brushed off the comments, the lingering looks, the way he always seemed to be there. She assumed it was harmless. It wasn't. He watched her closely, learning everything about her. Where she worked, when she left, and who she spent time with. Every move she made, he noticed. And when he realized she wasn't interested in him the way he wanted, he didn't back off. He got closer. She didn't know how much control he had already taken until it was too late. By the time she understood the danger, she was trapped in a situation she couldn't escape. Her final moments weren't just about a crime. They were about trust, manipulation, and a system that didn't see the warning signs until it was too late. He was supposed to be a mentor, a respected manager, well-liked by his colleagues. But there was more to him than anyone knew. He saw Alicia as a challenge. At first, it seemed harmless, just some friendly advice, some praise. But soon, it became clear he had other plans. It started with the compliments and the constant praise for her work. Then came the gifts. Small, at first, then bigger, more personal. Alicia didn't think much of it. She'd always been kind to everyone, so she assumed it was just his way of showing appreciation. But when he began talking about her to others, calling her his girl, she started to feel uncomfortable. He'd laugh it off when people raised an eyebrow, but she could feel the shift in his intentions. It didn't stop there. When Alicia started dating someone, that's when things changed. His attitude flipped. Suddenly, her workload doubled. Her shifts became unbearable. He found ways to make her life at work miserable. All because she wasn't giving him the attention he wanted. But it didn't end at the office. He started showing up uninvited, at her favorite cafe, the grocery store, and even places she didn't think he knew about. He'd call her constantly, always checking in, as if trying to catch her in a lie. He stalked her social media, keeping track of who she was with and where she was going. The more she pulled away, the harder he pushed. His obsession grew, and Alicia realized too late that the man she thought she could trust was now the one who would destroy her. The situation had gone from uncomfortable to unbearable. His behavior grew more intense, and Alicia felt trapped. He had been pushing her for months, getting closer and closer, but when she rejected him, it only made him more aggressive. He managed to convince her to take a trip out of town, something she never agreed to in the beginning. "Just one last favor," he said. "I need closure. I can't move on until we talk." She didn't want to go. She knew something wasn't right, but she couldn't figure out how to back out without making things worse. Her job was on the line. She thought she could handle him. Maybe if she went, he'd leave her alone. It seemed like a simple, harmless trip, but she was wrong. He booked a hotel that was far away, remote, and isolated. "It'll be just the two of us," he said. "I promise." She hesitated. But tired of his calls and tired of the constant pressure, she agreed. She wanted it to be over. The drive was quiet, unsettling. Alicia's gut told her something was wrong, but she couldn't bring herself to say anything. When they finally arrived at the hotel, the tension was thick. He assured her everything would be fine, that there was nothing to worry about. They'd just talk, wrap up what had been hanging between them. That night, she barely slept. She spent hours pacing in her room, trying to figure out how to leave, how to get away. But no matter how much she tried to ignore him, he kept showing up at her door. He wouldn't leave her alone. Finally, the conversation turned tense. She sat at the edge of the bed, hands gripping the sheets as he stood over her. "I want nothing to do with you," she finally said, her voice shaking but firm. His expression hardened. The moment those words left her mouth, something inside him snapped. In that instant, she knew. She knew it was too late to take back what she said. He had been waiting for her to say those words, but he couldn't let go. He lunged at her. She fought back, trying to push him off, but his grip was too strong. She screamed, but the walls of the hotel seemed to swallow her voice. It was a struggle, a desperate, frantic fight. Her mind raced as she pushed against him, her arms pushing and kicking. She knew she had to get away, get out of that room, but it was impossible. Her phone was within reach, just inches from her fingertips. She could call for help. She just had to grab it. But before she could, he overpowered her. At that moment, everything went quiet. The world around her faded as the last of her strength slipped away. Her final moments weren't about a crime. They were about being trapped in a situation that she couldn't escape. A moment where trust was betrayed, where a kind gesture turned into something much darker. She fought, she tried, but in the end, she was no match for the man who wouldn't let go. And just like that, her life was gone. The sun had barely risen when the doors of a small gas station slid open. A man walked in, his clothes wrinkled and damp with sweat. His expression was blank, as if he had just finished an ordinary task. He didn't look panicked. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't hiding. He walked straight to the cashier and asked to use the phone. The employee, barely paying attention, slid it across the counter. Then, in an unsettlingly calm voice, the man dialed 911. "I need to report something," he said. The dispatcher on the other end asked for his name. He gave it. Then, in the same steady voice, he said something that made the dispatcher pause. "She didn't love me back, so I fixed it." Silence. The dispatcher asked for clarification. Was someone hurt? Was this an accident? The man didn't hesitate. "Number I killed her." Another silence. The employee at the counter overheard the words and stiffened. He looked at the man differently now. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for something. Maybe the phone, maybe something to defend himself. But the man didn't run. He didn't argue. He simply walked to the side, sat down at a small table near the coffee machines, and waited. When the police arrived, they didn't need to chase him down. He was sitting there, hands folded, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. They approached cautiously, guns drawn, ordering him to put his hands where they could see them. He didn't argue. He didn't resist. He let them cuff him like this was all part of the plan. Back at the hotel, another team of officers pushed open the door to the room he had left behind. Inside, they found her. She was lying still, covered with a blanket as if she had just gone to bed. A pillow tucked under her head. Everything is placed carefully, thoughtfully. But there was nothing peaceful about what they saw. Blood stained the sheets. The bruises on her arms told the story of a struggle, one she hadn't won. Her fingers were scraped, her hands curled slightly as if she had been reaching for something. Maybe help. Maybe an escape. The officers stood still for a moment, taking in the scene. The air was heavy. There was no sign of a break-in. No shattered glass. No forced entry. Just her, lying there as if she had never moved. One of the officers turned away, exhaling sharply. Another clenched his jaw. They had seen this before. But that didn't make it any easier. Back at the station, he sat in the interrogation room, waiting. No panic, no fear. He was relaxed, as if this was just another conversation. When detectives walked in, he watched them with mild interest, his head tilting slightly like he was trying to read their reactions. One of the officers slid a folder across the table. Inside were the crime scene photos. "You did this?" the officer asked. The man nodded. "She should have said yes," he muttered. The detective stared at him, waiting for more. "I was good to her," the man continued. "I took care of her, and she threw it away." The officer leaned forward. "So you killed her." The man gave a small shrug. Then, for the first time since his arrest, he smiled. His confession wasn't an apology. It wasn't regretful. It was ownership. He wanted them to know he did it. He wanted them to understand why. Because in his mind, he wasn't the monster. She was. She rejected him. And that, in his mind, meant she had to go. The case would go on to be studied. Experts would analyze his lack of remorse, the way he justified his actions, the way he saw her life as something he had the right to take. But that wouldn't bring her back, and it wouldn't erase what happened in that hotel room. She fought. She tried to survive. But in the end, he made sure she never left. The courtroom was packed. Family members sat in the front rows, eyes swollen from crying. Friends and loved ones clutched each other, bracing for the moment they had all been waiting for. The tension in the room was thick, and it felt like time had slowed down. The judge stepped forward. Everyone fell silent. He delivered the verdict with calm authority. Life without parole. There were no cheers, no celebration, just quiet, heavy relief. The family didn't speak, but their faces said everything. This wasn't justice. It was closure, and it would never bring her back. The trial was over, but the case left a mark. It was a stark reminder of how dangerous obsession can be. How trust, kindness, and even the smallest actions can be twisted into something deadly. This wasn't just about one person losing their life. It was about a pattern, a warning sign that too many people ignore. Stalking is real. Obsession is real. It can take hold of anyone, and it can turn deadly. If something feels off, trust your instincts. If someone makes you feel uncomfortable, if their actions don't sit right with you, don't wait. Get help. It's never too late to speak up. If you or someone you know is in danger, contact the police. If you want to hear more stories that need to be shared, Don't forget to hit subscribe. Cases like this don't end with the trial. They leave behind lessons we can't afford to ignore.